out there to all of you guys who are in virtual instruction land. Welcome to the lecture portion of Module 5, Lesson 1, Fake News and Alt Facts. In this lesson, we're going to define what fake news actually is and learn the Caulfield technique to help you determine whether the online content you found is or is not fake news. Okay, so what is fake news? Well, prior to the 2016 election, this would have been an easy question to answer. Back then, fake news meant satirical news sites or programs like The Daily Show or The Onion. Shows that didn't so much make news up as make fun of what was going on in the news through sarcasm, exaggeration, and jokes. Then 2016 came along, and with it came a new definition of fake news. First, there was an element of satire in this new fake news. Like the shows we mentioned in the last slide, this new brand of fake news tended to adopt a mocking, satirical tone. This proved an effective defense against debunking, as when faced with contrary facts, a sharer of fake news could always fall back on the argument that it's just a joke. Gosh, you libtards with your, your snowflake ways. You can't deal with the joke. Har, har, har. Yeah, right? Etc. Now, the second crucial element in these new strains of fake news was propaganda. So, what is propaganda? Well, if you're looking at the World War II poster in this slide, you're seeing a textbook case of propaganda. When you drive alone, you ride with Hitler. Now, seriously, when a person drove alone during the war, were they driving with Hitler? Obviously not. Besides, dude was a terrible sightseeing driver. But the argument that was being made was that if one wasn't carpooling, one was wasting fuel, which could be used by the boys at the front, which meant you were wasting resources vital to winning the war, and thus were engaging in activities helpful to our enemies. Essentially, all propaganda rather neatly splits the world into good and bad and removes all nuance from the argument. The other thing propaganda is very good at is bypassing your critical thinking and going straight for your emotions. After all, this poster isn't interested in opening critical discussions about the nature of resource conservation during wartime or cooperative action to win the war. This poster is straight up accusing people who drive alone of treason. Now, such a message is, of course, meant to go straight for the gut, to inspire a sense of pride and outrage in those who are carpooling, and a sense of immense shame in those who aren't. The final major element in fake news that is the virtually unkillable cockroach of the information world, the conspiracy theory. Now, conspiracy theories are basically models on how the world works that are based on the assumption that there really aren't such things as coincidences, and that everything that happens, or at least everything that happens in a certain area or involving a certain sort of activity, happens due to the hidden actions of an unknown but extremely powerful group of people who are manipulating the masses for their own profit or power. Wake up, sheeple! You got it, right? Okay? There are a few examples up here on the screen. In the middle is one that those of us who followed the news during the Obama presidency should be familiar with. The idea that President Obama was somehow a secret agent of worldwide Islamic terrorism. On the right is an ad from the John Birch Society, a far-right group, decrying, among other things, the fluoridation of public water supplies. Finally, on the left is one of the oldest, most persistent, and vicious of all conspiracy theories, the so-called Protocols of the Wiseman of Zion, a pamphlet originally written up by the Russian secret police in the 1880s to justify their anti-Semitic persecutions. After World War I, it was translated into German, and became one of the texts that helped shape the worldview of a certain Adolf Hitler, the dude in the car a minute ago, and thus helped inspire the Holocaust. Were you to visit a neo-Nazi message board today, and I don't suggest that you do, you would find most of the same ideas in this noxious little pamphlet still circulating in these groups today. Now, the thing about conspiracy theories is that they generally thrive when people don't trust established news sources and levels of social anxiety are high, which basically defines the political landscape in the early 21st century. Now, none of these things are particularly new. Satire, propaganda, and conspiracy theories are probably as old as human communication. So what makes this new brand of fake news so powerful? A powerful new medium of transmission: social media. Social media acts like a cruise ship or an airplane with a single sick passenger on board. It's a space that makes it extremely easy to share content, thus allowing ideas, arguments, and yes, straight up lies, that would have otherwise probably been limited to fringe groups to hit the mainstream. In short, the content goes viral. And as we've all been reminded in the past few weeks, viral distribution can be extremely disruptive and potentially impossible to contain. And in case you're wondering, the rather terrifying looking bacillus at the center of your screen is actually the Ebola virus. All right, so before we go any further and proceed to part 2 of the lecture, I'd like you to take a moment and test your own ability to detect fake news. Go to the Blackboard page for Module 5, Lesson 1, and click on the Test Your Fake News Skills link. Once you're done, come on back and watch part 2.